Good morning, and welcome to Morning Java here on DKPittsburghSports.com. I'm Chris Carter, NFL analyst, here with Dale Lolley, NFL beat writer, and it's a big Steelers Wednesday because on Tuesday, the Steelers officially signed their safety out of free agency, Morgan Burnett. Dale, you've been all over this. Give us a rundown of what the Steelers got here.
Well, they got a guy who is versatile. He can play strong safety. He can play free safety. They used him at linebacker in Green Bay. He played slot corner in Green Bay.
Wow.
Pretty much anywhere they needed a guy, they used him in that role.
Interesting.
Because he was the veteran player, the veteran kind of calming influence. He also called all the defensive calls.
Now that's important because that's what Mike Mitchell did for this defense that a lot of people don't talk about, is relaying those signals and making sure people
in the secondary he did that.
In the secondary, right?
I'm talking. He was the guy with the dot in his helmet.
Wait, so he was the Shazier.
He was the Shazier play caller in that defense.
That's crazy.
Because he never left the field.
Huh.
He was their guy who was on the field 100% of the time. So that's how important he was to that Green Bay secondary. So you're getting a guy who is competent. Most of all, much like John Bostic, this guy is a pretty solid tackler.
Yeah.
You're talking about a guy who, from his safety slash slot slash linebacker position, in 5 seasons in his previous 8 years, has topped 93 tackles.
And he led the Packers in tackles last season, correct?
Right. Yeah, not necessarily what you want a safety to do,
right.
But you're also talking about a guy who played a lot in that William Gay position, in the box. So he's a guy that's going to give them some options. He's a guy that's going to give them some leadership in the locker room. Again, you've now added 2 quality people in that secondary, in Joe Hayden and Burnett. So you're looking at a big addition. And by the way, his brother was his high school football coach.
Okay.
Who also coached
Cameron Sutton?
Cameron Sutton.
I was reading a little bit about that. You think I don't keep an eye on these things. But no, yeah, I read that him and Sutton do have a relationship and that's going to be good moving forward. I think, especially with Sutton being the guy that kind of looks like he could be the William Gay of the future in playing all the different spots in the secondary, this could be a really good temporary move and a really good long-term move if he can teach.
And they got him cheap.
And they got him
3
cheap.
years, 14.5 million.
Definitely cheaper than Mike Mitchell.
Definitely cheaper than Mike Mitchell, and definitely cheaper, I think, than anybody would have foreseen heading into free agency. I had him as my #1 safety overall in terms of player ability. I didn't think the Steelers would be able to afford it.
Yeah, same here. I just thought, I understand he's 29 years old, and I understand that that's an issue that people are looking at. But I mean, he had an injury last season. He only had 3 passes defense. Every season before that, going back into his rookie season, which he missed because of injury, he had 5 or more passes defense. One year he had 13. And I mean, this is a guy, he doesn't rack up interceptions because, again, he plays in the box a lot more. But he challenges the ball. He often had a really good feel. When I watched him on tape, I was like, I've always respected this guy because he knew where to be. And that's what the Steelers really need out of that versatile kind of player.
Yeah, and in the 2 years that he did play free safety and was their starting free safety, had 5 combined interceptions in those 2 seasons.
Goodness. Well, there you go. Going to be a lot more shaken out over the next few weeks about Morgan Burnett. Now, Dale, of course, with the addition of Morgan Burnett and John Bostic, 2 veterans at the primary positions of need that everyone's been talking about, the Steelers need to draft, that might change up or at least add some flexibility to what the Steelers can afford to look at in those first 2 rounds especially.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it gets them out of being painted into a corner of what they have to do in the draft.
Right.
Before these 2 signings, they didn't have anybody, if they had to line up tomorrow, to man either one of those 2 spots. Really. I mean, they had guys, but not guys.
Yeah, not people you could depend on.
Not people you were going to put in the starting lineup. Now they have 2 guys who have done it and are veteran guys that can line up and start a game for you. Now you want to address the depth behind those guys or the competition, especially in the case of Bostic. I think they would obviously like to draft a guy who comes in and at least competes with Bostic for the starting job. Hopefully they would hope that he wins that starting job, and if he doesn't, he still gives you a guy that maybe he plays on 3rd downs,
right?
Or maybe they slide Burnett up and he fills the inside linebacker role on 3rd downs. And your rookie safety, if you get one of those in the 2nd, 3rd round or 1st round, now he's your free safety in passing downs.
And that makes sense because you want a faster guy that can play center field, which is where everyone was thinking the Steelers would go as far as addressing the safety position. But they do the opposite and getting the in-the-box type of safety. I mean, Burnett can play anywhere, but you would think that now that with this situation, this sort of takes out of the need to even go after. Because I was considering if the Steelers saw him available, like if Ronnie Harrison dropped down in the draft, that'd be a guy, he's an in-the-box safety. You could bump Sean Davis back. But now with Morgan Burnett, you don't even need to look at Ronnie Harrison, really. You can if you want to. But I think now
he's a football player. This gives them the ability to really do what they always say they like to do.
Best player
available, which doesn't always seem to happen. Sometimes the best player available ends up being at the biggest position of need.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily the case this year. They filled those two biggest positions of need with at least capable starters.
So, okay, give it to me straight. If we're talking, say, the top 5 inside linebackers are off the board, you don't see any safeties in sight that are worth that late first-round pick, where are you going?
Well, they could look at a pass rusher.
Okay.
They could look at a quarterback if there's a quarterback available.
You think a quarterback in this right now to groom for the Big Ben airship?
You don't know when that's going to end, and given some of the contracts that have been given out, I think if you bring your quarterback in now, you get a little bit more bargaining power with Roethlisberger and saying, you know what, maybe we're okay if you just play 2 more. I'm just saying they're not going to necessarily say that to him,
of course,
but at least gives you that bargaining chip to saying, hey, you know what, we're at least looking to the future. We want you as long as you're going to play, but we also have to keep an eye on the future. And if you're going to draft a quarterback, it has to be in the first round in these next couple of seasons, because that gives you that 5th-year option.
Yep.
If you take a guy in the later rounds, and let's say Roethlisberger, let's say you take a guy in this 3rd round this year, or Baker Mayfield falls to the 2nd round and you take him there this year. You've only got him for 4 years.
Yeah.
And if Roethlisberger plays 3 more seasons,
then
you got 1 season to figure out if Baker Mayfield can play or not.
Right, and that's going to be a tough position. So I totally understand that the 5th-year option has to be in play. Will certainly be very interesting because here's the other thing is that people were talking about, well, the Steelers are in win now mode.
They're always in win now mode.
They're always. That's the thing. The Steelers have never been in a situation where they're saying we're giving up on the season, which is why they haven't had a losing season since 2003. But I think the major point is here, the Steelers are a team, and we've seen this. They're not letting go of Le'Veon Bell right now because, 1, he's the best running back in football, and 2, they know that they have a nucleus right now that could last even beyond Ben Roethlisberger. I think that it's very reasonable to say that they will look at quarterback if they're in the spot that we're talking about.
If somebody falls to them, absolutely. And this is a team that I think right now, if you look at it, given what's happened to some of the other teams in the division, in the conference, specifically New England, and what they've lost thus far, I think if you look at it on paper, the Steelers have gotten better. I don't know if you can say that about New England right now.
Yeah, they're certainly.
They don't have a left tackle.
They've been talking a lot. I've heard a lot of talk about free agency. Oh, they're going to go get Ndamukong Suh. They're going to go get this guy, and constantly they're just getting signed by other teams. And Michael Bennett, the Seahawks took a lesser trade from the Eagles to give him to them than what the Patriots offered. The Patriots came knocking. They said, no, we're not giving them to you. We took an even worse trade from the Eagles. Certainly seems like it's going to be interesting to see how New England bounces back.
Yeah, I think so, and it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this offseason plays out. But again, I think right now, if you look at it, the Steelers are a better team as we speak than they were in January against Jacksonville.
Certainly. Now we're going to mix a little bit of our Steelers coverage with our college football team's coverage. We cover Penn State and Pitt. Both had their pro days this week, and the Steelers made sure to have people at both. Dale, a lot of people have been talking about, of course, Saquon Barkley is the biggest name in this list, and he's going to be off the board because he's going top 5, maybe even number 1. But there's people that are saying, should they take Gesicki as a tight end, even though he can't block and all of that. There's people who look at a player like Jester Weah. Is this a guy the Steelers can take in the middle rounds as a receiver? Who are some of the guys you think that the Steelers are actually going to take a serious look at and consider on draft day?
Well, I think if you look at Penn State's secondary, they've got 4 guys who are legitimate prospects in their secondary.
Marcus Allen being one of the big names.
Marcus Allen being one. Both corners. Apke, is there as well.
He tested very well in the combine.
Yeah. So you're looking at a very promising group there. Makes me wonder why Penn State didn't win more games. I mean, what the heck?
What's up, Audrey? Answer that question for us.
But all these guys really tested well at the combine, the ones who ran and did everything at the combine. So yesterday was a very important day for those guys who hadn't done all those things at the combine. So any of those guys would interest me in terms of Penn State, and they sent Tom Bradley, of course, was up there. He's a former Penn State assistant coach, and head coach for that matter. So that was kind of a natural for him. He was up there with Kevin Colbert. for the Pitt Pro Day, which is today, later on today. Obviously, the Steelers will have
They have to.
everybody there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at, it's right next door.
Right.
It's basically in your practice facility. So they'll be looking at that. Brian O'Neill, the offensive tackle, tested really well at the combine. His play at the Senior Bowl didn't match the athleticism that he showed on tape. But somebody's going to take a chance on this kid. I've seen first round stuff on him. He's not going in the first round.
I just think that would be such a reach
I
because you
think
need a tackle that's going to be good at blocking me. Yeah, it's great that he can move, but that's not what you need out of a tackle.
Well, what happens a lot of times is, and teams will look at guys with the body type, the athleticism, and they'll say, I can coach that guy up and make him a player.
We've seen that
but
before.
you don't take that guy in the first round. I think you take him in the second or third round if you think he's a potential left tackle. And he's got the feet and athleticism to be that and the size. But he's going to be a project.
Right.
So you don't take a project in the first round unless this isn't a great offensive tackle class, but he certainly, he'll get some interest, I think, late second, third round, somewhere in there. Jordan Whitehead's another guy that, I think can really make an impact possibly for a team. Played much better earlier in his career than he did later in his career at Pitt. And also had some off the field stuff that could push him down some boards. But he could, if he gets his stuff together, could surprise and be a legitimate, defensive starter down the road.
Yeah, I mean, he's the 5'11" type of safety that's athletic. They used him a little bit on offense because he was that athletic. I think that Whitehead's a guy that, as long as he comes across well in his interviews, he might get that late second, mid third round look.
You're talking about Julius Peppers type.
Yeah.
A guy who can, with the ball in his hands, can do some things. Obviously, Pitt used him on offense.
Right.
And so, we'll see.
But not with the Julius Peppers success.
Right. And that's the biggest difference. I mean, Peppers was the extreme that you get out of that, and Whitehead wasn't quite to that level.
Gotcha. Now it's time for What's in Your Cup, the segment where we take questions from you, the subscribers, and answer them here on the show. Dale, what's our question today?
Well, our question today, Chris, is from BB Love 83.
Okay.
And he asked, basically, what does the signing of Morgan Burnett mean for Sean Davis? Which is a good question. At this point, we don't know whether they're planning to use Burnett at free safety, at strong safety. I do know this, that I think Sean Davis can play either one as well. I think he can be a deep safety. He can be the strong. He can continue to be the strong. I think I like Burnett's play more, given what he's done in the past at strong safety.
Right.
So we'll find out. We'll meet with Mike Tomlin this weekend at the NFL owners meetings. It's the only time in the offseason up until the draft that he actually talks to the media.
Okay.
So I'll get a chance to ask him exactly that question. But what I think it means for Sean Davis is that he could be in for a position change.
It could be, and I think the other thing you have to consider here is that Sean Davis, with his youth, he's going to be faster, he's going to be quicker, and that's the guy you really want out in space, and that means back at free safety, covering and helping out. Now, Morgan Burnett, he has decent size for a safety, just like Sean Davis, and he's a guy that he's shown he can cover in man, like we talked about. He can cover the slot. You need a guy that's going to be able to help against those tight ends. Davis did a good job for last year. Although everyone thinks about what happened with Gronkowski, there were several touchdowns he saved against people like Darren Fells, the guy that was the backup to Travis Kelce for the Chiefs. But he had several pass breaks up against tight ends and did a really good job all season. So it's going to be interesting to see, do you take him out of that position and let him play free safety? Because he was basically a free safety when he had the interception on Marcus Mariota late in the Titans game. But I would tend to lean more to, if they do this at all, is to say that Sean Davis for now will be the free safety to let his speed sort of reign out, and they still could go get a free safety, a pure free safety, in this upcoming draft that you sort of work into this system. And maybe, who knows, you play like how the Patriots do and have three safeties on the field. Burnett is that extra linebacker that you're talking about. Sean Davis is in his regular strong safety spot, and then you still have that pure free safety roaming around back in the backfield, helping from sideline to sideline.
Yeah, Burnett gives you the Patrick Chung option.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm thinking about, is Patrick Chung, a guy that, if you remember, he went to the Eagles and it was horrible, but in the Patriots system, he was very useful. And I think that's what Morgan Burnett, I don't think he'll be useless in another system, but in a Steelers way, if Butler can find a way to use this guy, he could alleviate a lot of depth problems.
Absolutely.